Donald Trump will dissolve the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi will write a strongly worded letter. I was reading and thinking and looking at, the Constitution, and Jefferson Davis, of all people. Heard of this guy? I'm not a fan of him. And thinking about how it applies to Trump, and I think that I've come to a conclusion that
Oh well, Jeffy boy.
would be it's morally correct to ban Trump from the ballots. That is the point I have come to. It not only is it morally correct, but it is legally sound. Popog disagrees with me, though I think that it is legally sound and supported by the Constitution.
I don't think so, but go ahead.
So there was a guy. His name was Jefferson Davis. Have you heard of this guy? He was the president of the Confederacy. So pretty big deal that that guy. And he used to have been. He was at one point a senator for the United States. Chose to be a part of the Southern Rebellion and was the head of the Confederacy. Fought a whole civil war. Now, question for you, Thomas. Why doesn't this son of a bitch work? Not the question I'm asking you. Sometimes fucking OBS just does not want to function.
So you said question for you, Thomas, and then you...
I know, I'm screaming. Yeah, I know.
Started a question?
I started a question, which was why in the damn hell does OBS not work? Which is not the one I wanted to ask you, because I'm trying... There it is. Finally. Good God. Like, there's a drop down.
Your stream is like when you have mirrors.
I know. There's a drop down in OBS where you choose what to put on the screen over here. See, this is on the screen. That's on the drop down. Sometimes the drop down does whatever the damn hell it wants and doesn't show things that are on there, and it shows things from like 4 streams ago. Not kidding. I can go into that drop down and see websites from like 4 streams ago. Why? I don't know. The one I have on my screen right now of Jefferson Davis wasn't an option. Not an option, but something from like 4 weeks ago was. And then I have to like F5 and I have to fight with it and I have to wrestle with it. Okay. We're on point now. Okay. Look, this is Jefferson Davis.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Constitution prevents people from being voted for. It does. The Constitution prevents people who were born outside of America from running for president, right?
Yes.
And we accept that as a correct fact. I accept that as a correct fact. No matter how much I want to vote for Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's an American citizen now. He was the governor of California, and no matter how much I want to vote for Arnold Schwarzenegger for president, I can't. He can't run. He's ineligible. I'm okay with that. You're okay with that. We're okay with that. This seems like a system, and that's the Constitution telling me who I can't vote for. Hang on to that idea. Jefferson Davis.
You cannot vote for Kim Jong-un.
Right, I can't vote for Kim Jong-un no matter how much I want to. Same for Jefferson Davis, right? Because he didn't run for president of the United States after the Civil War, but if he had, would it be okay with you, Thomas? This is the question. Post-Civil War, Jefferson Davis runs for president of the United States. Alternate history slightly. Are you okay with the Constitution preventing his eligibility?
Not really.
You're not okay with that. Okay. That's what the 14th Amendment did. 14th Amendment, Section 3, the one that they're using to chase after Trump right now, did exactly that. Prevented the person, Jefferson Davis, from running for office in the United States.
I actually think the 14th Amendment is one of our worst amendments.
Okay. So you're... Okay. So All right. That's fine. I think that it's a good idea. You should not allow Jefferson Davis to run for president of the United States. You shouldn't allow it. I'm okay with that.
I don't say that for the intent behind it, but I think it's one of the worst written ones.
It's poorly written, and because of that, you disagree with the way it plays out, or?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, so for example, the first part of it is the part that said that anybody who's born in the United States is a citizen, and the intent there was, this prevents anyone from categorizing a former slave as a non-citizen,
Mhm.
right?
That was
And
their
now
intent, right?
the way that it's used is if you step 2 feet north of the border and pop out a baby, the baby's an American citizen. But if
Mhm.
you're 2 feet south of the border and you pop out a baby, it's not. Like, it don't make sense.
We draw
um,
lines. Borders don't make sense. I agree with you, my
and
man.
then
Borders don't make sense.
the well, that's
I know.
not the
We're
point.
I know.
And then you have this whole uh, situation of anyone engaged in insurrection can't run and whatnot. I really don't think that I would qualify January 6th as an event is on the scale even.
I agree. It is.
Well, it certainly isn't on the scale.
Yeah, I agree. It's much
Um,
smaller. But
but
even on the
I
large
don't even
scale.
think I could call it an insurrection.
But
I'd call it an
before
incident
we
of stupidity.
before we move up to Trump, let's stick around here. Jefferson Davis, architect of the Civil War, leader of the Southern Army, literally led the. No, he didn't lead the charge, but he led the army
Well,
to
so
killing Americans. And
this also
you're
doesn't
okay with
prevent.
him running after the
Yeah,
Civil
hold
War.
on. So the other thing with the 14th Amendment is it also doesn't prevent something where someone hasn't actively engaged in insurrection, but where their attempt to manipulate our political system is an act of insurrection itself.
Hmm.
So, like, for example, in the oh shoot, I'm forgetting what they're called. You have what's called the Long March through the institutions, right? That
Hmm.
old McCarthy was really worried about.
Okay.
And you couldn't use the 14th Amendment to prevent communists from running and then infiltrating into the United States government. But the 14th Amendment was specifically designed to prevent the Confederates from doing it, right?
Right. It was. I would agree to that. Its intent and specific design was to prevent these Confederate people from running because they did insurrection and rebellion.
Well, right, exactly, and that's sort of what I'm getting at is that the intent behind the 14th Amendment, they intended to make sure that nobody categorized a slave as a non-citizen. They
Hmm.
intended to make sure that the Confederates couldn't run for office. It just the way that it came out as an amendment is really shitty. Like, it
Okay.
doesn't apply to certain situations, and it does apply to other ones, and it applies in like I said in the case of the first section, it's like to too many things. Yeah, I'm not. I think the 14th Amendment is probably my least favorite one. But yeah, so Jefferson Davis.
Okay. So if the 14th Amendment isn't properly written, it needs interpretation, things like that. So I mean, I think that's fine. I think we should interpret those things and measure them and put them onto the current circumstances and make a decision. So yeah, Jefferson Davis. I think it's fine for the Constitution to prevent him from running. I accept that. I think that's a proper idea. I think that's a
I
good
disagree.
idea. I think that's an acceptable use of the law, the courts, and the country.
Well, so the country, if Jefferson Davis in your hypothetical situation had ran for president
Hmm.
afterward, right?
Hmm.
The country would have had to elect him,
Right. And
which they
because he's
wouldn't have.
anti-American and anti-American rights, we should prevent him from doing so. We
So
prevent
in
we
that
prevent
situation,
29-year-olds from running. We prevent people born in Germany from running. We prevent Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's acceptable. Why isn't it acceptable to prevent anti-Americans?
why shouldn't we prevent communists from running?
If they're pushing if part of their platform is to take away democracy, I'll suggest to them too. We'd probably have to write a new amendment because they haven't done an insurrection or anything like that. But I'm okay with preventing anti-Americans, anti-freedom, anti-democracy from running. I'm okay with that. I think that the law ought to be built that way in a democracy. We have a democracy right now, slightly, mostly. I'll say mostly. And if your platform is "I will end democracy, vote for me," I'm okay with the entire law saying no, you can't run. You're ineligible.
Oh, I disagree with that too.
That sounds insane to me. Why would you be? Why wouldn't you want the system that you are supporting to support
Mhm.
itself?
Well, the system that I'm supporting involves people making choices.
And
And for this person to run, more than half the electorate would have to say, yeah, I don't like democracy. Let's not do that anymore. And they would make their choice. People are responsible for their government.
and if they choose a person who then removes democracy, that's okay. And then
Yeah,
that person removes
and
democracy. That's just
when they do that, that's
democracy in action.
their. It is, yes.
Great. And then how do we get it
Their
back? Is there
choice.
another election, or is this guy God Emperor forever?
Oh no. When the way you get it back is when you're sick of this guy or his
Violent
progeny, whoever.
violence.
It's violent. Yeah.
Violence. Okay. How about we just prevent him from running and avoid the violence?
People are responsible for the choices they make. If they vote for the wrong person, it's the same way that, like, I don't have any sympathy for any people that are under the thumb of a dictator in some other country, right? Like, people are responsible for their government. Every single government operates under the consent of the governed.
I mean, unless it's violently
straight up.
holding them down.
Are the military members of that country that are oppressing them also not people from the government?
Their specific interest is
or
get
people-
to be powerful as a military
Uh-huh.
member, and all I have to do is hold down the proles. Yeah, it's good for me. That's why they make that choice. They don't make that choice because they're evil. They don't make that choice because they're bad people. They make that choice because it benefits themselves, and they're a bit more selfish than maybe a normal person would be.
Well, that sucks.
Right, that sucks. And
but
there's only one
those
way around
people-
that. Violence. I agree. In that case, there is only one way past that. Lots of violence. But maybe if we used a little bit of wisdom, we rolled some dice on a wisdom check and suggested, hey, this guy is running a platform of taking away democracy, removing people's rights. Let's make him
If
ineligible.
the people choose to vote for that person, let them. It's their fault.
Okay. But we can't vote for a 29-year-old for president.
I mean, I think we should be able to.
Okay.
But
vote for anybody for
the
president.
Constitution says, yeah, well, no, they have to be a citizen. You can't vote for someone.
Okay, so
from
that's a
foreign power.
line.
Yeah,
That's a
listen.
hard line you're willing to draw, but not a hard line on I will end democracy if elected. That's not a hard line you're willing to draw. That seems insane to me. I'm not.
Well, the reason is because we have interests as a nation, right?
Mhm.
And if you vote for someone who is not if you vote for someone who has
Palpatine.
interests,
Let's call him Palpatine. How about that? Because he literally did get elected and then ended
let's call
democracy.
him
So Palpatine
Kim Jong-il.
or Kim Jong. Okay.
Kim Jong-il has interests that are not aligned with the betterment of the United States. Like, if Kim Jong-il became the president of the USA while also being president of North Korea, he would make decisions as the president of the USA that hurt us and helped North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that it makes sense to let someone who has alternate interests to run, right? Like, he has a conflict of interest there. Whereas, I mean, even Palpatine. It's like,
ending
if
democracy isn't the conflict of
If
interest.
Palpatine was just a United States citizen, what country does he serve that he could, what country does he serve that he is pulling the strings in favor of at the detriment of the United States, right?
Okay. That's
And yes, if the people vote for Palpatine,
born in America, over 35 years old, has lived here for 12 years, ran as a senator, promising to end democracy. He has ended democracy in his state of, I don't know, New Mexico.
people are responsible for
and
the
they
government
accept
that
it, and
they
they love
elect.
it, and they like it, and he
Then
is
let
now
them.
running on a stage. What about their kids? What about the next 4 years when he doesn't step down? Violence is the only answer, and I think that's the situation we keep getting to. Yeah, great, you can violently overthrow your government, but shouldn't we take the steps to prevent the violence? Is prevention, an ounce of prevention, not worth a pound of cure? Nope. Okay, I disagree completely. I think it's
Look,
morally
like I said,
acceptable to
people are responsible
Palpatine.
for the government that they are under. That's it. All
Sure.
governments exist at the consent of the governed.
Are they still responsible for the government after Palpatine takes over?
Yes.
No, they're not. They're not in charge of
Yes,
it. It's
they
not
are.
democracy anymore. They're not making any choices. They're not telling him what ought to be done. He's
If
not
they don't
listening
like
to
what he's
them.
doing,
He's
they
doing
should
what he
overthrow
wants.
him.
They should
And guess
violently
what?
overthrow him. And that's
Yep,
the only
yeah.
option.
Yeah, and guess what? There was a violent revolution that occurred in Star Wars. for
Yes, there
Palpatine.
was.
Yes.
Couldn't
The Rebel
Jar Jar
Alliance
have
went and
prevented
blew up
all of
his-
that?
his
Couldn't
Death
Jar
Star
Jar have
twice.
prevented all of it? And it was a huge waste of resources and manpower and lives. Couldn't Jar Jar have avoided all of it by not giving Palpatine the thing, saying, "Hey, listen, I want an amendment that you can't run as a person who will take away democracy. Jar Jar could have prevented Palpatine from taking over. He wouldn't have become the Emperor. He wouldn't have built that Death Star. He wouldn't have had been destroyed. The violence would have been prevented. I would like to prevent violence. I think that's a good idea.
I think you're thinking too far down the road, actually.
Because I've got the car in D. I'm looking forward. I'm driving. I'm looking forward, and what I see is removing Donald Trump from the ballots will be less chaos than allowing him on there.
I don't agree.
I think that the Constitution,
first of all,
Constitution tells you who you can't vote for all the time. It does. It tells you who you can't vote for. And if
a couple of things about that. First of all is there were some interesting arguments made. If we're getting to the Donald Trump stuff.
Yeah, let's move on to Donald Trump. Good call.
Yeah. If the Constitution as written, there were some very interesting arguments made. I read some of the transcript from the initial hearings, the arguments made, and one of the arguments made was that the text of the 14th Amendment is not self-executing. So, for example, you can run for president or you can run for Congress, right? And you can win. And after the fact, if the 14th Amendment is applicable, then Congress, with a 2/3 vote, must decide whether or not you are actually eligible to win or not.
Right. And the Supreme Court accepting Colorado's thing doesn't take that away. That's still on the table. That's still entirely acceptable if the Supreme Court makes a certain type of a decision. They say, yeah, Colorado is correct. Donald Trump could be written in, he could win, and then the Senate could 2/3 vote that he is eligible, like you're just describing. That's still there under my proposed suggestion.
What is your proposed suggestion?
That Colorado is correct. 14.3, the 14th Amendment, third section, should be applied to Donald Trump, and the SCOTUS should say yes, that is acceptable. And then he would not be on the ballot. I think it's entirely acceptable. I think it's not only morally acceptable, I think it's legally sound and supported by the Constitution to remove Donald Trump from the ballot because he did, in fact, support an insurrection.
Well, no. The 14th Amendment does not say you can't run for a public office. The 14th Amendment says you can't hold public office.
Okay. So
Arnold Schwarzenegger
can run, according to you?
Can run. Yes.
I think
absolutely.
I think somebody else is actually doing this right now, and it's what's his name? Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. He is not allowed on the ballots in many states because he was not born in America. He is challenging that in court, but the courts will not allow him on the ballots because he's not eligible.
See, I mean, I think that he can run if he wants, and Kim Jong-il.
So from your point of view,
Kim Jong-un can run.
They're allowed
to
run, and they're allowed to be on ballots, and
be on the ballot. Guess what? Some of you are not eligible. If you vote for this person, they're not gonna make it into office, because if you elect them.
Again, with the forethought wisdom suggestion, if we know, can't we figure out who's eligible ahead of time so that people aren't throwing their votes away, wasting their votes?
Not as the text is written.
Not as the text is written. Okay. Well, I think that's a shit system. Maybe the 14th is a bad amendment, and we ought to fix it.
I told you, the 14th is literally the worst amendment.
Okay, maybe we ought to straighten it out a little bit.
Except for the one, the abolition one, and then we had to write another amendment to cancel abolition. But
right. There was a whole thing. It got written, then it got changed. So what I'm suggesting is, as it's written right now, it seems to me like it applies to Donald Trump the same way it applied to Jefferson Davis, and Jefferson Davis didn't run. But if he had, I would be accepting of that intent. That was their intent, stop these anti-Americans from running for office in America. And I think Donald Trump fits that bill because he has not only done that insurrection thing, he has promised in his speeches, it's part of his platform now, he has promised that he will remove everyone who is not loyal to him from the federal government. He's promised that. He is telling us specifically on stage in front of a camera that he will remove everyone who is not loyal to him. He will clean out the deep state, which means anybody who disagrees with him, and then he will he's promised to prosecute his rivals. He has promised to prosecute people on made up nonsense charges.
I mean, if you look at his track record, He said that in the last election too, and it didn't happen. So
Right, but now he
I wouldn't
knows
take him
that
as
he's
word.
immune from crimes. He has suggested very, very many times that he is immune from the crimes he committed while a president and in the future and afterward. He's pushed full immunity for himself for eternity, forever. And if once he's on that level, will he not just break all the laws? I think he will. I think Donald Trump gets elected, he breaks laws like fucking crazy. All day, every day. He's breaking laws. He's putting people in gulags. He's going to start up some gulags, bro.
No, he won't.
Gulags are coming if Donald Trump wins. The people who are
So silly.
No, he's promised it.
You've been
He
watching
has
too much Lost,
promised it. He's promised it. He has told
They're
us
not
that is
coming,
exactly what
not
he is
happening.
doing. He told us what he was going to do. And what he was going to do is prosecute the people who disagree with him.
He said that he would prosecute Hillary, didn't he?
Yeah. And he didn't
Did he?
because it wasn't legal.
That's what I thought.
And then the lawyers weren't on his side and then they couldn't do it. He'll get rid of the lawyers. He has lost all fear. He has been shed of the fear. He will surround himself with lawyers who do whatever he wants, and then he'll start replacing judges. And because he's got
Can't
this
just
immunity
replace a
thing,
judge.
he will. He'll just do it.
You literally can't.
Palpatine couldn't dissolve the Senate, but he did. There's no rule that says Palpatine can dissolve the Senate, but he did. That's what Trump will do. He'll just do it.
We
He'll
have
just
checks
do
and
whatever he
balances.
wants.
It's not gonna
No,
happen.
they'll be gone. It will be cease to exist. And you know who has the other half of that
You're
checks and balances? You know who has the other half of those checks and balances? The Democrats, the wieners, the wimpy, lame, milquetoast, limp dick, spineless Democrats. Nancy Pelosi.
Well, no.
Donald Trump will dissolve the Senate, and Nancy Pelosi will write a strongly worded letter.
What the fuck?
That's it. That's it. That's all that'll happen.
Out of your mind, dude.
No, that's what's going to happen. He's going to dissolve
showmanship?
things. No, he's going to dissolve the
come
stuff.
on.
He's going to ruin the entire country. He's going to break laws, and Nancy Pelosi is going to write a letter. That's it. That's what's going to happen. He has promised to break the law in his next administration. He has promised to do so, and by doing so, I think it's okay. I think it's okay if he's promising to break the law, to harm the Constitution. If he promises on his soapbox during the campaign to break the Constitution, are we not allowed to remove him and remove his eligibility? I think that's fine. I think that's a good idea.
If he breaks the Constitution while in office, we have a system for removing him. It's called impeachment.
And it won't happen because the Democrats will only have 49 votes, so it won't happen. They'll impeach him just like last time when he broke the law and he harmed the Constitution twice.
When he makes a decision, guess what? He's the executive branch, not the legislative.
Mm-hmm.
So, if he makes a decision that is against the legislative branch, guess what? The court system can then say, no, that decision is wrong and it's against what the legislative branch has said, so you don't get to do that.
But he'll have 51 Republicans who will just vote for everything he says.
What happened last time he was in office? How much did they actually get done?
He did not get, because he was afraid. He was worried about his second term. He was afraid of the courts. He was afraid of these things. Now he's immune.
For a lot of things.
He's telling you he's immune. If he thinks he's immune, he'll do it.
For a lot of things. I mean, he tried to get a lot of stuff done, and all of it was shut down by his own party. You think this time they're going to be more?
Oh, yes.
Subservient?
Sure are.
I suppose.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Not only is he more powerful now, he has beaten 2 impeachments because he was impeached, yeah, but he didn't get removed either time because Republicans covered for him because he is the future of the party. He has installed his daughter-in-law as the head of the RNC. Did you see that message? That news story that popped up?
Look.
His daughter-in-law is now in charge of the RNC, and she has promised to give all of their money to him. He's doing a corporate takeover of the entire thing. And I really think that this is, if he wins, I don't know that he will, but he might, it's going to go really badly. And he's going to break 1,000 laws, and the Republicans won't vote to get rid of him because he is in charge of their party, and his daughter-in-law won't back them for re-election. If you imagine, if you voted against Donald Trump in the impeachment, you have to go through the RNC to get funds for your re-election. Laura Trump will just stop you from getting them. I think that's her name. I should look her up. But she's in charge of the RNC now. She decides where their money goes. And if you stand against him and you vote against him in that impeachment, you won't get any money. Or you'll be, the RNC will coordinate a primary against you.
I mean, fine. Let them.
How is that fine? This is authoritarian. It's a
Who do you
bad
represent?
system.
Do you represent yourself when you go to Congress, or do you represent the people who voted for you in the first place?
Donald
If
Trump
those people-
represents. Okay, sorry.
If those people want a certain thing to happen and they elected you, for example, if they want you to vote in favor of impeachment of Donald Trump, vote for it. Congress members have a lifetime pension for this reason. Maybe we need to increase the pension.
And it's not enough for them to run a campaign. The stupid campaigns cost billions of dollars now, and they'll be pushed against from somewhere else. Hey,
I don't think it's
what the
billions
hell is
quite
that
yet.
sound? Frank Embry just rated me with 6 viewers. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. I'm gonna write that down and raid him again later too. Very nice. Thanks, everybody. We're yelling about Trump right now.
Like I was saying though,
Mhm.
people are responsible for the people they elect, and/or are responsible for their government. If that representative decides to vote against the interests of the people that elect them, then they need to be replaced.
And we won't be able to replace them because they will own all of the power. They will own the entire Senate. The Senate will be owned by Republicans. And when Donald Trump breaks the law, those Senate Republicans are going to be responsible for holding him to account, and they won't. They will simply choose not to.
Okay, and if the people are not okay with that,
Violence.
they need to elect somebody else.
Violence is the answer that we will have
No.
to get to. It has to come
And
to violence.
they need to elect someone else.
Elect someone else. He's going to prevent you from being elected. He's going to prevent the proper election from happening. He's going to break the law on elections. He's already broken election law many, many times. Donald Trump and the Republicans have broken election laws. And your answer is to elect someone else?
Yeah.
There's no way it will work. You have
He
to
already
choose
has.
violence. Yeah, chat's choosing violence. I think that it won't. We either need to prevent the violence or do the violence.
So Donald Trump broke election laws last cycle.
Yes,
Who is currently the president?
Joe Biden.
So not Donald Trump.
Right, because he didn't break enough laws. Had he broken 20% more, maybe he'd have won. If the Republicans had
How do you quantify 20% more election laws?
20% more election fraud, if Donald Trump had done 20% more election fraud, then he would have won. Yes, I'm pulling that number right out of my ass. I agree. You're right. I am pulling
What
that
if we
out.
just made this 20% cooler?
What if we just made it 20% cooler? Yeah, that's corporate. I'm a corporate guy, I understand. So yes, if a handful of the Republican senators had backed him on January 6th, the count might have stopped. That whole thing that they were trying to do on January 6th with the violence and the insurrection, if that had been 20% more successful, then yes, Donald Trump would have had the grounds to sue and say, I should have won, and stuff like that. If the fake electors had been successful in their fake electing, Donald Trump would have won. And all you have to do is break the law. And then once Donald Trump's in charge, he'll pardon you and get rid of anybody who argues. I think that's what he's going to do, and I think that's what's coming. And that's why I very much dislike him.
I doubt it.
Because he is a gigantic super cheater. He cheats at everything. Donald Trump cheats at golf. He cheats on his wife. He cheats on his taxes. He cheats in the he cheats at business. He cheats at real estate. He cheats at voting. He cheats at everything. And when he cheats, he wins, except in court. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Do you want to bring Popog on? Because I know he is excited to talk to us, and he is.
Bring him on.
Okay.
Why not? I'm
He's
interested in
probably
this
going to
guy.
agree with you. So I'm going to bring on Popog. Everybody, Popog is coming on. He is a super cool guy who is more legally sound than I am. Dragging him in.
And me. Popog, what's up?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Hey,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
to talk to you again. Glad you're here.
Hope you've been enjoying this argument so far.
Yes, especially, the pro-Palpatine wing of this discussion is pretty good.
Right.
Hey, I mean, if the people
So,
elect him, let them.
To address a couple points that you guys have brought up, there is so one, I actually posted a little chart in the disagreements with Waldo. It's a second flow chart. Got so many flow
Oh,
charts.
good.
But you guys were talking about the eligibility. You have to be, was it 30 years old and a natural born citizen
Right.
and all that stuff.
35, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. There is, so the 35 and 14 years a resident and whatever, those all come from qualifications for the presidency, which is Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5.
Right.
Which it's different because those, at least it might be different. The court is somewhat deciding that now. Those say that they are not eligible to the office, right?
Okay.
Which is different from what it says in 14.3, which says hold any office. So there's a question there of whether or not there's a difference between those terms.
That is an
which
interesting distinction.
Yeah, that's a textual distinction that is going to be decided here, maybe. But so the flowchart that I've given, it's not in order, as in, because you can the Supreme Court is probably going to decide whichever one of these is the smallest decision to make, because that's what they do, is they always pick the least impactful, smallest way to get rid of a case.
Okay.
That's particularly the Roberts Court. That is
Do the least.
what he does.
Okay, that's
yeah.
I can almost appreciate that.
Yeah, there is a certain merit to it, but it's also so this happened with EPA versus Sackett, which the recent EPA case that everyone was up in arms against was the second lawsuit between the EPA and the Sackett family, and so there's two Supreme Court cases called EPA versus Sackett that occur like 6 years from each other because they dealt with the first case in the least intrusive way, and so it went all the way down and then came all the way back up again, and they had to decide it again. So there's some downsides to doing that also, where it's like you would literally have these cases that just bounce back and forth to the Supreme Court for some like retiree couple wanting to build their house on some plot of land near a river, right? And it's like, is that really what the best use of our Supreme Court's time is?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, so the flowchart's not in order, but I had to pick an order to make a flowchart, so that's what it is. And I want to get your take on it, Waldo, in terms of, one, if you think the flowchart is wrong in any way, or two, which way you go down the flowchart.
I have the flowchart here. Just need to push this button so everybody can look at it. Look at it. It's flowchart. Let me bring it over here. We're going to start.
All right, so on this flowchart,
Yep.
The part where I'm disagreeing is the third diamond.
The third diamond. You're hitting a thing on the third diamond. Okay. Start is president in the 14.3 A list. Yes. I think it would be redonkulous for him not to be in that thing. And someone just turned a frog gay. I appreciate it. Thank you. I think it's ridiculous to think that the president wouldn't be included in that. He holds an office. It doesn't the Second Amendment, or it was Section 2, Article 2, uses the word office to describe the presidency.
It does. There's a couple of reasons why he might not be, which is the idea that the president, in the president's duties, he has to commission all of the officers, right? And so it
right, and I get that. I just think this is the weakest of the textualist arguments.
Which one? That first one?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it's, but there is one tangible difference that's a proposivist difference between the two, as to why. Because if you look at the drafts of this, the word president was in the list before, right? And it was removed.
So it was taken out, and I don't like.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right, on purpose, and that's why I said I'm fine with Jefferson Davis running for president.
Well,
so
they were spitballing. They were coming up with ideas. They were workshopping it, and then at some point it got removed. We don't know why they removed it. One, did they really want it removed, or did they think it was so blatantly obvious that they shouldn't lay it out?
So the great news about this is that we have tons and tons of records from this time, because this was much more recent in the founding. The founding we have a lot fewer papers about. In this we have newspaper articles, and we have the notes from a lot of these debates in the state houses where this was passed. And in one of those state houses we have a debate between two state senators or state congress, whatever, who one of them says, like, hey, why isn't president on this list? And the other one says, no, he totally is on the list. See, he's in the any other office, right? And the first guy's like, oh, okay, that's fine then. But there are other houses, like other states, which don't agree with that
Mm-hmm.
interpretation. And so it's kind of annoying that the consensus on this, the historical consensus, appears to be nobody agreed, but we passed it anyway.
Which is why more evidence that the 14th sucks, right?
It's just pretty good
I hate the
evidence that the
14th.
14th Amendment sucks.
Okay, great. So at least we're all coming to that agreement.
Well, then I think I won this argument then because, I came in saying the 14th sucked and you didn't.
Well, you can point to it sucking, but that doesn't mean it's not
Here we are.
doing the right thing for the right reason. And even in the text discussions I was having with Pope, I know. Even in the text discussions I was having with Pope, I kind of came down on the purposivist. How did you pronounce that? Purposivist.
Purposivism.
Purposivism. I didn't choose that because it made me right.
Chose you.
It chose me. Because I was looking at this thinking, what the hell did they want from this 14th Amendment? What was the intent? Why did they write this thing up? Then let's do that. And I became a purposivist, apparently.
Yeah, so there is, like I said, there is an argument as to why president's not in that list, and it's because the overarching purpose of this is to remove power from the states and give it back to the federal government. It's like, oh, the states have too much power, they can send these senators in who are going to destroy the United States from within, so we need to rip power away from the states and put it in the hands of Congress and the federal government to staple this union back together and keep it together. And that's true for all of the things that are specifically in the list: senators, representatives, electors for president and vice president, the people who make up the electoral college. And then the other section, right, is any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state. And that's trying to just kind of deplete those people's ranks from all of these other things. But for president, so it's like all of these appointed offices, right? And then the state offices, and then this list of federal elected representatives who are sent by each state. But the president is not a representative sent by each state. The president is sent by the many states. And so the president is already this federal position. And if you give the power to states to kick presidential candidates off of the ballots, like if you're saying, Palpatine can't run for senator of Georgia, that only hurts Georgia. Right?
I agree with that.
But if you're like, Palpatine can't run on the Colorado ballot because Colorado hates Nabooians and we want to hurt the state of Naboo, that's different, right? So there's a material difference between the power dynamic of state representatives versus the office of the president or the vice president, which are elected, but they're pseudo-federally elected.
Okay.
Yeah, and beyond that, I mean, even the whole point is to prevent a Confederate long march through the institutions, right?
Right. It's
like
that is its intent, and I think that applies to Trump. I think he is.
I don't think so, because
harmful.
president sort of
some
jumps
insurrection and ought to
the
not.
whole march.
I think he's not allowed to do that long march.
No. The long march is like you infiltrate, you get into the inner workings, you run for Congress, you run for Senate, and whatnot, and then you have a power base.
That's what he's promising. He's literally promising to do so. If he
then
pushes,
he's promising things he's not capable of.
Of course he is.
Trump
Ted
promises
Cruz.
a lot of shit,
Ted Cruz will support him.
I mean,
and Ted Cruz is a senator.
Politicians overall promise a lot of shit that never happens.
He's in charge of the entire Republican
says,
Party.
I mean,
Trump's
is
platform is promising
all time.
shit.
Right. Well, maybe the thing he promises is very dangerous, and we shouldn't allow him to be eligible. That's my point. That's the point I'm getting to. Because he's promising things that are un-American, I think he's ineligible.
You can't do it based off of what he promises.
I know.
So
we can't do it off of what he's promising. You're right. I can't do it off of what he's promising, but I can do it off of the actions that he's taken, which was the insurrection on Jan 6. The Jan 6 is an overt act. It's a act towards the thing that you promise. I can say, you can say certain things under the free First Amendment, but once you start taking actions towards accomplishing that crime, I can say I'm gonna rob a bank, but once I start taking actions to further that thing, then it becomes true, right? Then it becomes a crime.
At the point of lawless imminent action, yes, that does become true under the Brandenburg test. But follow the flowchart, and we'll see when we hit that point.
We'll
I'll grant
continue
you
down the
anything
I'm saying yes, he is on that 14.3. Did Trump
Sounds great.
take the 14.3 oath? Yes, he did.
I agree.
So he during his presidential oath, he supported and defended the Constitution, which 14.3 is part of. Are holding and
I'm-
running for the same thing? No. Shit. How does that make him Trump win?
Hold on.
Okay.
Papa had a thing to say there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, just on the second one, I'm going to disagree with Thomas and say that this one is the weakest one.
Actually,
the oath
I was
difference.
going to correct myself and say yes, this is the weakest one. Yes.
Because it says support instead of defend.
Yeah, it's
No.
kind of a wish-wash one.
He took the fucking oath. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, correct.
He took the
It's
oath. Yes, this is the weakest one. And after I said that, I was looking at the photo.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, no. So
I misunderstood what
you.
you guys were talking
I
about.
said that
weakest
is president in the 1483 list is the weakest one. No, it's not. Actually, it's this one.
Yeah, the list has at least some potential justifications. This one has no justifications of like.
No.
If you broke
100%
them,
has
they'd be
previously
treason
taken the oath,
anyway.
yes.
So
Okay, so all of us are in agreement on the second diamond. Trump
Yep,
did
yes.
take the
Done.
14.3A. Oh, okay, great. I'm glad we all agree on that. Look at this. We're building bridges over here. Third diamond.
All right.
Are holding and running
Third
for the
diamond.
same thing?
yeah, so this is
no?
the question of is him being ineligible to hold office the same thing as him being ineligible to run for office?
Okay.
Right.
We have evidence.
And this is what we were
Cenk
talking
Uygur,
about
have
earlier.
you, Popog, have you watched Cenk Uygur make this argument?
Cenk Uygur was in the Supreme Court. He was mentioned, not
Right.
name dropped, but he was mentioned in the Supreme Court arguments at this
He's
point.
making this argument that he's eligible for the ballots.
And he's definitely wrong. There is absolute precedent on this where there is a concrete difference in, at least there's a concrete meaning and significance to the qualifications for presidency and the inability for states to add on to that list. So states are able to implement the list of no person except a natural born citizen, blah, 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 blah. They are able to, that list is called the qualifications clause, and it can be implemented by states. It's not actually mandatory for some reason. So some states are allowing Cenk Uygur to run as a joke, I guess. I don't really know, but they cannot add on to this list. That has been well decided, and the only question is 14.3 adding on to that list, or is it a different thing? And the justification for it being a different thing is that one, it uses different terms, but two, it has, but Congress may vote by 2/3 of each house to remove such a disability. And by having that, you have a question of, so let's say Colorado removes Trump from the ballot, right? On October 31st, Congress has an emergency meeting and removes the disability from Trump.
Okay.
Right? They say, we voted for him. You know, he's a swell guy. He's now eligible. How do we go back in time and make Colorado punished for violating Trump's right to run for president? Because he has the right. So that's the question here.
Which is why we need to figure it out ahead of time. Well, let's use some let's use some wisdom and determine who is eligible, and if they are eligible, allow them on the ballot, and if they are ineligible, do not allow them on the ballot. That makes sense to me. If you're allowed to vote for Palpatine, and then later we find out that he is not eligible, you've wasted time, you've wasted resources, you've pissed off the people. Let's manage the chaos. Let's lower the amount of chaos.
But how? So this would only increase the chaos if Congress removed the disability, right? So to be able to remove him, if these are in fact different things, if they're the same thing, then we can move forward. But if they're different things, then basically Colorado does not have the ability to remove him from the ballot, because they would be adding a qualification to presidents, the requirements for presidency, and they don't have the power to do that.
Which is why I'm okay with it going to the Supreme Court. This is working properly. If you ask me, it's working properly.
Sure.
Colorado tries to do a thing, and it goes up to the Supreme Court to make that decision.
And the Supreme Court is going to vote. I am almost willing to guarantee 9-0 in favor of jumping on the ballot.
Because of one of these first three diamonds, or because of the first one, or what?
I would bet a concurrence occurs on this point. So I'm gonna like based on the questioning, we're either gonna get concurrence on this point or on the first one, because even Ketanji Brown Jackson likes the first one. She thinks that the president is not on the list for some of the reasons stated. For the holding versus running for office, I would bet money on a concurrence from Gorsuch that this is one of the key differences, but I don't think we're going to get a majority on either of those. We might get like Alito,
It doesn't have to be on a
Gorsuch.
specific
It won't
diamond,
matter,
right?
right?
Okay.
So,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
going to be
correct.
9-0
Jackson
on
trips over
the fact that Trump gets to run, he gets to be on the ballot, and Colorado cannot remove him from the ballot on the grounds of the 14th Amendment.
Yeah, I think that's the likely outcome. But let's keep going.
Yeah,
So which way do you land? I mean, I think Thomas, do you have a particular opinion on the holding versus running for?
I think that they're different. Yeah, I think that anyone can run technically, but when they win, if they win, are they actually eligible? Congress can say no. In the case of the 14th Amendment, Congress then has to make them eligible by a 2/3 vote. So Jefferson Davis could have won if he ran, and then Congress, by a 2/3 vote, could have said
no.
yes or no.
Okay, and if they said
Right.
no, I mean,
And if they said no, Jefferson Davis is not in.
and then all the people who voted for him are very angry, and then they cause chaos.
They're very angry, except that the whole point is that the people that voted no represent those people. And if they don't like the result, guess what?
Well,
Don't reelect
the
them.
Senate is made up of 2 people from every state. So the southern states said yes, but there are more northern states, and so they all said no. You're causing chaos and a rift between the south and the north again.
You need 2/3 of each house, right? So
Also,
Right, which they wouldn't have, which they wouldn't get. And
In order
at
to
which
get that
point the people
2/3
we
vote-
voted, the man we voted for, is not eligible after we voted for him and after the election is over.
in order to
We're
get
very
that 2/3
angry.
vote, a lot of Northerners would have had to vote for him.
Well, maybe. Okay, so that situation would be he gets, well, not with the Electoral College anymore.
Not only does he win,
Fucking Trump gets 6
through the
million fewer
Electoral
votes and
College.
still wins. Trump gets 6 million fewer votes, still wins. Then they choose to say that he is ineligible, that he doesn't get the 2/3 of the Senate. At which
maybe.
point
So there's other points, but if we grant that he's an insurrectionist, then yes, that would be procedurally the next thing to occur, which functionally would probably actually be in the form of like an impeachment inquiry into whether or not he's eligible.
That sounds like chaos to me. Why can't we just figure this shit out ahead of time? Why can't we determine his eligibility before he's on the ballot?
We live in a democracy. Chaos is the
So
thing that we do.
I agree with you, but this is also why I don't think that the Supreme Court is going to decide on any of these issues, because there are some problems with that. But do you, like, on this issue, assume that there's an anti-chaos machine that is working? We know Trump is going to lose the election, for example, right? We just know we've done polling, and he's polling at 5% of the vote or something, right? So we don't have to worry about that. Do you feel holding and running for the same thing? Do you think that he wins the case on this point, or do you think that we need to proceed further on the flowchart?
I think they're not the same thing, but it needs to be determined.
Trump wins.
Then his eligibility needs to be determined before the election. That's the point I'm trying to get to. He needs to be determined eligible.
Well, so you're
before
saying
the
no,
election.
but yes.
No, holding and running for are not the same thing. But
Then
it
no,
doesn't
Trump
matter
wins.
because we need to determine
not-
this beforehand. Why should we determine eligibility after the election? That's insane.
That is possible here. There is a slight needle to thread on that, but so
Effectively,
in that case,
you're saying yes.
yeah,
Effectively,
effectively
I'm
you're
saying
saying yes. That
Yes.
they're like, maybe not totally, but from an implementation standpoint, they have to be.
Yes, and the reason, what's the needle that I'm throwing? You're right. Running for implies that you can hold. If you are running for, and it implies you can hold it. So yes, running for is previous to holding. Running for, how can you run for a thing that you are not eligible to hold? It's a shit system that is.
Sure. I mean, it is an anti-originalist, semi-judicial activist-y approach, but it is actually, this is something that I would bet Roberts would vote on, because having procedures that actually function correctly is something that the Supreme Court probably should consider when it's making decisions on cases.
Correctly functioning procedures. I like that term. That sounds like a good idea. We ought to have some of
Also,
those.
quick question, Popog, did you create this spreadsheet yourself?
Yes, this flowchart is my creation, is wholly and entirely.
I love it.
Nice.
I'm going to put it on the YouTube page and then credit you. This is good.
Great.
Okay, so
It's a lot
I'm
of work,
saying
man. I
that
appreciate that.
yes, because if you are not capable of holding it, you should be ineligible for running. So
Yeah.
I'm functionally saying yes here, because
All right.
that's the intent I'm getting to. And you think that the Supreme Court will be
So this is where we
gummed
that's
up
where we
on
disagree.
you think the
But
Supreme
yeah.
Court is going to hit these hurdles and then come down to Trump winning. And I don't
No.
think that that's impossible.
No.
No?
I think it's going to be 14.8.3 is not self-executing because it requires a 2/3 vote from Congress.
Okay. So you think
So
the
Trump
Supreme
will
Court's
have to
going to
win.
clear all of these three hurdles, and we're still on the yes thing, and then the
No,
Supreme
I'm
Court's going
saying
to get
even
here?
if they do. So I don't
Yeah,
think holding and running for office are the same thing.
So the
But-
important thing, like I mentioned about this flowchart, is it's not actually ordered. Like, I had to pick an
Okay.
order to make it.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
which is the
so-
problem.
They
So
could start
holding
here if
and
they
running
want.
for office.
They can start anywhere.
being
They
the
just have to go
same
through all the
thing
block.
is a different question from whether or not it's self-executing, right? So it's not the case that 14A.3 being self-executing has to come before or after holding and running for office, right?
Okay. So we can do this one first. If the Supreme Court wants, they can start right here. That's fine.
They can start
In-
anywhere.
in
I
fact,
honestly
like-
made this chart in this order for you specifically, Waldo, so
Okay.
that we could get
Like-
through textualism first, because I figured
Well-
you'd be like, yes,
well-
yes, yes.
The
Yeah.
self-executing part actually could be before holding and running.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah,
Right.
it's almost certainly going to be in terms
But
of how the Supreme Court's going to
Popog knew I was going to say
Yeah.
yes to all of these, so we should. So he put it that way. That sounds good to me.
Okay.
That sounds correct. That is good flowchart making. So, what are our opinions on self-executing?
So the reason that I've made the entire argument I have so far
Mhm.
is holding and running are not the same thing. The reason I said that anyone can run for office, right? But only some of them can actually hold it. In terms of Jefferson Davis, for example, he could run and win as the president. However, after that, the Congress has to decide, is he actually eligible? And then they, with a 2/3 vote, say no or yes. Actually, it's not a 2/3 vote to say no. It's a 2/3 vote to say yes. So if less than 2/3 of the Congress say yes, then he's not eligible.
Okay,
Right.
that sounds
less than 2/3 of either house, actually, right? Like, if the House says 2/3 yes, but the Senate says only 1/2 yes, it would be theoretically
that's
still
not
disabled.
That
Right.
will lead to chaos, won't it?
It
So
will,
what?
which is why I don't think that's what the Supreme Court's going to do. But that's not the only solution down at the end of no.
Right,
I don't view
because
chaos as a problem. I'm not gonna lie.
I would like to have a society. I like society. It's a good thing.
I do too.
Chaos is strong, though. So, I mean, if
But-
you think about it,
I
I feel the
mean-
warp overtaking me.
It's coming for you, and this is warping your brain right now. I'm reading this flowchart and I'm being warped. So I would like to avoid the chaos by planning things out properly. I'm a crazy person for suggesting.
I like the chaos because the chaos will find a balance at some point.
The chaos will
Right.
harm people. The chaos will cause normal, everyday Americans to vote for a person who then gets told by a congressman that they didn't vote for from California. The Texas person votes for Donald Trump. Donald Trump wins. California senator says no, he's not eligible. That's chaos. That's Civil War starting activities. Right
No, we're breaking new ground. We must set foundations for this kind of territory.
Great. You and I agree we should set foundations. Why don't we do it before the election?
We are probably
We
going to
haven't-
do it before the election.
We're probably going to do it
probably
before the
are.
election.
Probably
Okay.
gonna do it before the election.
Okay.
Also, like
Good.
this is stuff that needs to be fleshed out.
Okay.
Because the 14th Amendment is so poorly written.
It needs flowcharts.
It's good that we're doing this now and not 200 years from now. Let's
Well,
put it that way.
Okay.
right?
I don't
would
want to do it
would
5
be-
minutes after Trump wins.
It would be even. Well, you're
We can-
thinking too short-sighted, right? Like in 200 years,
Well,
when President Gublak.
he's
No,
going to
it's
put
when
me
Trump's
into a
on his
gulag.
40th term.
Trump's going to put me into a gulag
No, he's not.
next year. I'm
Oh, so-
thinking next year is what I'm thinking.
Trump cannot even spell gulag, so I
He
think
doesn't-
you'll probably be okay.
I might be exaggerating my own importance, but I got rated today, so I'm kind of a big deal.
What?
No,
You got swatted?
no, rated in
Yeah.
the Twitch chat. Remember?
Yeah, gonna get FBI rated later.
I'm kind of a big deal, Thomas. Okay, so we're at 14.3 self-executing. I don't know enough about the law and self-execution, but if the lawyers say no, it's because it wasn't. I mean, it seems self-executing to me, but there's a reason that it's not.
Okay, so the question about self-executing, in particular, the best, I think, representation of what it would mean, and I think the problems with this self-execution are, so I don't know the timeline, but I'm just going to make up times because nobody cares anyway.
Sure.
At 10 a.m., Trump gives his speech, right? And that's sort of the end of his overt actions that we would say contribute to his insurrectiony stuff, because after that, he just like goes and fucks off in some lounge somewhere, right? Like he doesn't do anything else after that point. So that ends at 10:30, right? So at 10:31, then Trump would be considered an insurrectionist. So at that point, he's still president, but theoretically, under the self-execution theory, he's no longer eligible. So he's not president. So Mike Pence is actually president at 10:31 immediately, with no one saying anything, no one doing anything. Boom, Mike Pence is now magically president, and Donald Trump is not president, which means that if Donald Trump told, some military personnel to go get him a soda, that military personnel could say, no, I'm going to disobey these orders against you. And there's a whole bunch of problems with that in terms of what that would functionally mean. Like that itself is chaos. If
That is fucking crazy.
Only
actually.
if they know it.
Like,
great. Well,
yes,
only if they're aware of such a thing.
it's true, but we still have to deal with the legal idea of this. If we're treating the theory of self-execution as manifest, it has these implications, and part of the court's reasoning has to deal with like, okay, what are all the implications of these interpretations and how they work? And that one, it could mean things like Mike Pence invalidly certified Joe Biden as president because he wasn't vice president when he did that.
All right, it's a Schrodinger's cat situation.
Yes,
but Mike Pence doesn't know that an insurrection has happened, so he is ignorant to the fact that Donald Trump is no longer the president, and we can't base this off of common sense. No, we're not allowed to do common sense. This is a law. You're
It's
right.
law. We're not
law.
allowed
We're not
to
allowed
do
to do
common sense at all.
Yeah. No, that actually, those implications are crazy. I had not even considered them.
This was the part.
And
the idea that
not wanting
Joe Biden
we choose
couldn't not have been certified as president under the 14th Amendment. Fuck the 14th Amendment, dude.
14th is a pain in the ass. All right.
So that's the reasoning why because the self-executing is the idea that you don't need any process, you don't need any procedure, you don't need anything. It just happens.
Okay.
And that's really hard because of like it's impeachment without any process is like it doesn't make any sense.
I'm thinking the answer to self-executing has to be no then.
We can't determine that we can't determine. You said 1031. Yeah, he's no longer the president. We can't just determine that a week later and be like, okay, from this point on, a week later, because of the insurrection that he did.
It's not a week later.
This
is years later.
Well, I know.
And
we're
Mike
years
Pence.
But so that's a question.
Election.
Sure, we can. Why would we do that, though? What is the text which tells us that, oh, yes, 1 week after the insurrection, there's a congressional hearing.
Okay, so 1 week was the wrong term. The Supreme Court, they meet tomorrow, February 18th of 24, and determine that, yes, Donald Trump did an insurrection, and from this point on, from February 18th forward, it will be considered an insurrection. And we don't have to...
Yes, that means they can, but that means it's not self-executing. That means it's the Supreme Court's execution.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would mean
So-
it's not a self-execution, which means it goes to no.
which means someone has to execute it. And
Okay.
the two reasons for this are the textualism of 14A5, which 14A5 says Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article, which sounds an awful lot like it's not self-executing and Congress has to make laws to execute it. They just get the powers to do that from this. And that's frankly an extremely strong textualist argument, because that's literally how the entire rest of the Constitution is written. That is how every clause in every part of the Constitution is written, to give Congress the powers to make laws, to give the president the powers to do things. Every single part of it is written this way. So the people who argue that no, this part's self-executing, literally, it's like the craziest thing. I don't understand. It's as if they've never read any part of the Constitution.
Yeah, it seems not to be because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then propositivism is like, hey, this whole thing's about federalism. Probably they wanted Congress to have powers to do stuff because that's what federalism means. So it's almost certainly no. Yes is put in here for posterity.
Just so we can
in case Waldo said yes.
Yeah, I don't think that it is. It seems not to be, which leads us down this path to no.
And then either no or yes both results in Trump winning.
Right.
Yeah, Trump winning pseudo on the yes of this final branch here. It's mixed, which is why it's purple.
Right. Do states have jurisdiction? I don't think they do, which is why it's gone up to the Supreme Court anyway. And Trump must be convicted. I mean,
yeah.
So
under Colorado law, like ain't happening before the election.
Yeah, that's the difference between. So for this last one of do states have jurisdiction, this argument was made in the oral arguments, and it is stupid and terrible. The Colorado's lawyer said, well, yes, maybe Section 5 does mean it's not self-executing. If you guys want to rule that way, I think it is. But, I'm going to argue my lines of defense for this. And so he's like, okay, if it's not self-executing, Section 5 just says Congress shall have the power. It doesn't say other people also don't have the power.
No. Which shall means must. Right?
Yeah,
Congress has the power.
It doesn't say no one.
This
It doesn't
means that
say no
actually-
one doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So all three of us right here, we have the power to command the armies of the United States. Just because it says the president has the power doesn't mean that
I don't.
Waldo, Thomas, and Papa don't have that power.
That's the Colorado's argument.
Specify who has power, it immediately excludes everyone else from having the power. No. That is a bullshit argument.
It's not. It doesn't sound good. I agree. It doesn't sound good.
It was a very stupid argument, but even if we take it, it only lands us at the place where basically I think because it's not self-executing and we put the power in the hands of some legislature, Congress, or apparently the states, they would need to enact law which enforces that, right? And under the suggestion by Roberts, which I feel like is probably going to have the most support, is that Congress enacted these laws on insurrection. And Trump needs to be convicted under those laws, which means he has full due process and everything's happy and it's all decided before the election and there's no ambiguity. It's like, oh, he has this disability, then Congress can remove whatever, right? Like all that becomes really straightforward if they go on that lane. So that's that one is I think the most likely bubble to be hit.
Okay. This is probably where they're going to start. They're going to hit no. They're going to hit no, and they're going to say he wasn't, and that's going to be their decision. That is fine. Saying that's leaving the law now, saying morally we're correct to remove him from the ballots morally, but not legal. Okay. What did I name the thing that it's moral, legal, and backed by the Constitution? It's moral. It's no longer legal. It's not quite backed by the Constitution.
We can go through the rest of the path to see the yes path, because there is a conviction.
I'm interested in.
Can we start right here?
Your moral argument. What's the moral?
He's anti-democracy. He is anti-democracy. He is an authoritarian who has who will take away people's rights. And I
have a more convincing moral argument for Thomas, I think.
Okay.
Go for it.
It's a pseudo-legal, but I believe that the actions from the evidence that I have seen, that the things Trump did, not really on January 6th, but leading up to it, of orchestrating the fake electors plot, right? I've seen enough things that I'm like, okay, he has mens rea. He thought that what he was doing was wrong. Any reasonable person would have thought that what they were doing under those circumstances was essentially trying to perpetrate a fraud upon the electoral offices of government, right?
Okay.
That's to me what I've seen. If I was on a jury and that was the charge, was attempting to perpetrate a fraud on electoral offices of government, I would vote guilty at this point based on what I've seen.
Yeah, I would too.
And from that, I think that if you are an elected official or an appointed official, actually, if you have taken an oath of office and you do that, I don't think legally it's true, but I think morally, so we should make a law to do this, that should be treason. Like, to me, that is complete violation of your oath of office to protect the Constitution, right? Like, this is way worse to me than cops like abusing their authority on civilians. Like, this is like a governor stuffing a ballot box to get back in office, right? Like, it morally.
Yeah, it's post ballot counting
That is a
stuff.
very strong argument,
And that's why I call him anti-democracy.
and I agree with you actually.
And that's why I'm suggesting morally it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that.
And the last bit is treason does not remove your eligibility from the ballot. You can be elected after being convicted of treason, but that's
Also
only true if you're given the wrong punishment for treason. If you're given the right punishment for treason,
Which is
Death.
the death penalty.
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the correct. If that's the correct punishment, you can't run anymore.
That gives me a lot to think about. I'll say.
Murder, more treason.
Papa wins
Okay.
the stream.
He's winning. So
I have
saying,
beaten both Waldo and Thomas. Check it, timestamp it, clip it, chat.
Andy's funnier than me. All right, I'm gonna stop bringing you on. I'm just kidding. So to the title of the stream, which is on the screen on your screen if you're watching, barring Trump from the ballots is moral. I think yes. Is it legal? No, but because the law is written poorly, as I think we all agree that the 14th sucks, and backed by the Constitution. No, not really. It's only backed by the Constitution in a perpisivist stance, but not in a literal textual or originalist stance, because again, the 14th sucks. So, okay, I hate it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All this goes back to the 14th sucks.
The 14th sucks, and that is
It's not a great amendment.
it's the place that we all come together. We've built some bridges. We've burned some bridges. We've built some more. And the answer is the 14th Amendment is poorly written and sucks. And damn it. Ugh. Okay.
Yeah, we all feel better for it now.
And now we all feel
Hooray.
better.
I will say that Trump was never convicted of treason.
It's
No,
true. I mean,
he wasn't.
I don't think he will be convicted of treason because his actions don't follow specifically what current definitions of treason are. Right? The current treason law does not have anything to cover any of the things that he did. You could say like
Nothing about
maybe
Twitter
his
in there.
I mean, perpetrating fraud against the elected offices and whatnot. I don't think technically.
Yeah, it
falls
definitely
under
does not.
treason.
I can
Right.
agree
Fall under
with
current
I can
treason.
agree with you there,
Right.
Thomas.
So,
The fake electors, it isn't quite treason because there's
following your logic, yes. If that did fall under treason, the penalty is death. But I don't think that we could reasonably give that penalty.
I would agree.
I think it
now.
would be a hard sell at the moment.
It'd
but,
be a
you know, it
really
could also
fucking
be
hard sell, especially legally.
$5,000 fine and 3 years in jail. Those are the other options for treason or whatever.
Right.
Okay. So I can agree
So-
with that. He didn't commit treason when creating those fake electors. He's still doing election fraud.
And if he didn't commit treason, then under Article 14, he is still eligible, like as we've
Even-
read it so far.
Even if he did commit treason, he'd still be eligible under.
And morally
14th Amendment.
speaking, yes, I will agree. Morally, he is probably not eligible.
Okay, so now we're down to only one of the three.
Well, but legally and constitutionally,
It's far more
he
important.
is.
Yes, that's more important in the
And
courts.
that's only on the morally in the terms of, do I think that Trump is a moral agent? No. I
Yeah, but
have
to be
told
fair,
you.
I don't think that this has changed that stance, right? Like that's
Yeah, no.
that's
I have told you many times I don't like Trump.
Yeah, I never
He's just what we
thought you
have
were
right
one
now.
of his supporters.
Right.
It's just this.
So
Yeah.
So I don't like Trump, but I don't like a lot of people, and I do think that they are eligible to run, right? So
Okay. All right.
Trump
Well,
can run. I just, I just,
time to throw your
it's
vote away
just-
to a third party, right?
it's just morally bankrupt. Okay. Let's wrap this up before we move on to the next headline. We're almost in agreement that morally he shouldn't be breaking election law and sending fake electors. That's a bad thing. But legally and constitutionally, those actions don't prevent him from running and don't remove him from the ballot.
right.
Okay. Well, then I guess I just make moral arguments for the next 9 months or so, suggesting that anybody who's supporting Trump is morally incorrect.
As long as they're strong, because that's what the rest of the media does, and it does one of two things: either people agree with you,
Mhm.
or the people that don't agree with you, they bristle and become more determined to vote against what you're preaching.
Which is why I don't think that any of the Trump's a racist, Trump's a like I don't think any of that is a good stance, because I think it's too partisanly unprincipled.
Exactly. It's one of those things. It's like when Trump made his very first speech when he announced his candidacy for president, right?
Mhm.
They came out swinging. They were like, he called Mexicans whatever, and it's like, no, he did not.
Yeah, there have been too much lying about what,
Yes,
like
there was-
exaggerating
the
what he said.
People bristled against the framing of what he said and the out of context of what he said and whatnot, and it actually backfired against the anti-Trumpers, and people voted for Trump as a result of the media framing him as a racist when what he said was not actually racist.
And I think it's what's going to cause people to not care about the election fraud stuff is because they're like, well, you're also trying to get him on a campaign finance violation, which is complete bullshit, right? You're also trying to get him on all these other things, which are like, even the documents one is like, what he did isn't that bad. He's acting really guilty. So, like, I get why, but, like, I don't care that much about it as much as I care about the election fraud. Like the documents thing, Hillary did it, Biden did it, they all do it, and Trump acts like a guilty mobster all the time.
He acts worse afterward. Yeah. He denies the subpoenas. He tells them he gave them everything, and he literally lies to them. So, yeah, of course.
He sends people down to hide shit. Like
tells people to go
like,
hide that shit because he wants to keep it. He's not being what you call I forget the word.
He acts like a guilty motherfucker. Right?
He is not complying with the court that's telling him what to do, and he's denying the subpoenas and shit like that. So it looks worse, and then that compounds. And when if a court tells you to do a thing and then you do it, okay. If a court tells you to do a thing and then you tell them to fuck off and attack them and call them names on Twitter, all of a sudden shit starts to amp up. The cops don't back down. They ramp up.
It's true, but I don't think that the Democratic strategy should be to amp up the court and wave that flag, because waving all of those flags distracts from what I think is the only real legitimate fuck this dude, which I got lost in. For the last 2 years, I did not understand the extent of the evidence and what the actual actions he undertook were for the fake elector stuff.
And you're suggesting that it is more substantive than the media has made it to be.
I think it is, for me, like I said, that thing is completely morally disqualifying. All the Jan 6 stuff with he's an insurrectionist. It's like, he gave a speech. People broke the law after the speech. Nothing in the speech says go storm the Capitol. It's a really hard sell for me for
I view the fake electors thing as a way different thing from the January 6th insurrection thing.
Yeah, 100%. They're
all
night and day.
It was all part of the same plan.
One
planned by the same people.
Yes, but the Jan 6 stuff doesn't really fit the actual plan. The Jan 6 stuff is pretty clearly Trump's. He knows the plan hasn't worked, and it's his last desperate attempt at popular support.
Okay.
Right? Like, it as far as I can tell from reading the stuff, the Jan 6th rally was like maybe vaguely related, but like not actually a part of the plan.
Okay.
And it, like, storming the Capitol does not, from anything I've seen, that like Trump did not intend for people to do that, right? That he intended for them to protest in crowds, and he was hoping for way more people, and then maybe something would happen, a miracle occurs, and he's still president.
Some of
But
his staff
as far as
were talking about stopping that count. Some of those Republicans were talking about not allowing the count to happen. If Mike Pence does Trump talked about Mike Pence having courage and doing the right thing, and that right thing
Yes.
is don't count the electoral votes.
Yes, but I don't think that like those actions, as far as I can tell, are protected under the Brandenburg test, right? That Trump still has significant free speech rights, and unless he is directly, like, provably causing lawless imminent action, right?
Won't someone kill this
Where-
Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest? Is that the area we're in?
You'd have to be somewhere like that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The king looks up to God and says, "Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest?" And then a guard walks out of the room, kills the priest, and comes back. Did the king order it?
In that case, yes, because it would be
Maybe.
foreseable, and
But you'd have to
whatever.
argue that. And then there's an argument
Yeah.
for no, he didn't order that.
Yeah.
He was talking to God. He was praying. It's God who killed him. Okay. So that is a terrible mess. And I think that we have run it around for a very long time.
True.
Any final thoughts on the Trump barring from things before we move on to the next thing?
Nothing from
Nope,
me.
but I think that's all the time I have for today. So thanks for having me on stream.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm
you
always
come on,
happy to
Papa?
be your legal correspondent.
That was Popog, our senior legal correspondent. I really appreciate you coming by. Thanks for being here. Thanks for participating in the Discord. If you are listening, if you are watching, and you want to talk to us about such cool things like that, you can go to the Discord. It's right there. There's the link. You can look at it. You can click on it. You can send us stuff. You can look at Popog's amazing flowcharts.
Hey, if you show us, like Popog, that you are a cool guy with great arguments, you might end up on the stream. with
Yes,
us.
indeed. If you're in the Discord, proving that you're a decent person, doing good faith arguments, then we can bring you on the stream too. So, something to look forward
I
to.
remember back a couple streams ago, we told Papa he couldn't come on.
Right, and that made
Really?
sense.
And then I made flowcharts, and I got
And then he
on.
made flowcharts, and then
Exactly.
he showed us to be a good person.
Come
and
participate.
He didn't scream the N-word in the Discord, so we let him on. See,
There it is. Hey, thanks, Popog.
I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for having me. See ya. I'll catch the rest of the stream.
Goodbye.
And I need to take like a 2-minute break real quick.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the bathroom.
Totally fine.
All right.
I'll
You
do
with me?
I'll do the streamer thing where I tell everybody to like the stream, click the thumbs up, do a follow, turn a frog gay. If you become a follower, you turn a frog gay. It happens. It's what happens. I don't control it. It's just a natural process. Every time you click the follow button, you turn another frog gay. So if you would like to do that, if you would like to become a follower and stuff like that, click the follow button, click the thumbs up buttons, go to the YouTube link, go watch the videos afterward. Because what happens is that I live stream all the things, and then I chop them up, take out all the uhs and the ands and the noises, and then post them up on YouTube so you can watch there as well. Become a subscriber, and then make the algorithm like me. And once the algorithm likes me, then there's more people to talk to, and then there's more stuff, and then KBP can flex all his points in chat to even more people, because that's what matters, is having a lot of points, as KBP does. He doesn't have any pawns, though. He has points. He has 7,000 points, and he needs people to know that. He needs more people in this chat so that he can point mog on them, so that he can point flex. Okay? He's flexing to 6 people right now, and that's not enough people. He needs more people to flex on. And if And if he flexes on more people, it will make him more happy, and then more people will be here, and then they'll all start point flexing. It'll be a whole thing. Well, this is future eternal growth forever. That's the plan. Waldo and Thomas for 1,000 years. Okay. So that is the plan. Hopefully, people will see it and do it and click on the buttons.